Hello, and welcome back to Bombchu. I'm Austin, and today I'll be taking a look at Anodyne 2, Return to Dust, a sequel to one of my favorite games that I've been waiting a long 6 years to play. This review will be in two sections, starting with spoiler-free, then spoilers, which will be clearly marked with plenty of time for you to pause or skip ahead. With that out of the way, let's get to it. Anodyne 2 is a hard game to pin down. While you don't need to have played the first, it might be helpful to know what my expectations were coming in. Anodyne 1 was a top-down Zelda-like game with a dark atmosphere and story. I loved it, and you should absolutely play it if you enjoy 2D games at all. But again, you don't need to have played it to understand this sequel. And in fact, it's probably better if these are largely treated as separate games, because while they share a few things, they are significantly different experiences. You play as Nova, Cleaner of the Dust. You are tasked by the Center, your home, creator, and god/church-like entity, to go and find people afflicted with dust, shrink down inside them, and get to cleaning. You explore the world in 3D with PlayStation-style graphics. You have the ability to transform into a car to get around quickly, and you use your spark gun to form a connection when you found someone in need of cleaning. You'll usually need to talk to these people multiple times, as NPCs can have several different things to say before you've fully exhausted their dialogue. You do a little rhythm minigame, and finally head inside into a 2D micro-world that looks and feels like the original game. The 2D worlds are mostly self-enclosed and themed after the personality and problems of the person you've entered. You have a vacuum which you can use to suck up and spit out objects and enemies. Some enemies can't be sucked up, so you might have to get creative. Several rooms have gates which have to be opened by hitting a button, using a key, or meeting certain conditions, like eliminating specific enemies. Puzzles and combat in these areas are mostly pretty easy, without being boring, though there are a couple of later areas that require some thinking and paying attention that we'll get to in a bit. At the end of each 2D area, you suck up a big dust crystal, which your Glandulock seed will happily turn into a card for you. What's a Glandulock seed? This little guy, who has been with you since you hatched. He helps you clean dust and stay on your mission, and we'll be talking about him some more later as well. So you've cleaned up the dust for someone, you got a card. What's this all do? Well, you use cards to build up barriers for this dust tower, and you fill it with dust. This allows you to clear dust storms so you can explore further, with the eventual goal being to fill it up to the top to activate the Anodyne, which the Center will use to bring an end to unhappiness, chaos, and dust. Quite a lofty goal. But with such a big spread out world to explore, what if I get stuck looking for cards? Well, don't worry, there's an NPC who will drop hints on where to look, sometimes even giving you a hint about what to look for in that area, and he's super helpful. And this is about all that is consistent throughout the game, so we are now going to be entering spoilers. There's a timestamp down in the description you can use to skip to the spoiler-free wrap-up. As you unlock new areas further away from the center, you'll find that the areas and the problems faced by those who live there become more complicated, and things can get a little darker. Once you have 12 cards, enough to complete 3 out of 7 segments of the tower, an event happens and the pacing of the game gets thrown all over the place. Easily the only part of the game I really didn't like, you become weakened and have to slowly trek to a certain spot. It's frustrating and annoying, but it doesn't take long, and it's seriously the only piece of this game I didn't enjoy. From here, you find a microscopic town that not only lives in the dust, but thrives in it. And since it's microscopic, you can't shrink down any further to clean anyone there, so you have to learn how to live without the center sustaining you, which the people here are more than happy to teach you. They live by eating, sleeping, and loving each other. They live, they die, they're born instead of being hatched. It's all very different for Nova, but eventually she gets comfortable here. This does not make your Glandulock seed happy. In fact, it flashes with rage, and Nova changes noticeably, suddenly feeling revolted by the town's way of life, and determining that she needs to leave and keep performing her duties. This segment of the game is not short, and it's the start of Anodyne 2 shirking your expectations. When you return to the center, a new caretaker is present who has determined that you need a better sense of purpose in life. So he's scattered collectible metacoins across the world for you to find and spend to bring yourself fulfillment. These coins are strewn about, giving the wide areas a little more content, but they are neither fun to collect nor satisfying to spend, and I believe this is on purpose. They are an empty goal, a symbol of trying to buy your way into heaven like a cult or a corrupt church. For most of the game, there is one useful item you can get with metacoins, and that's a card detector. It's the first item you get, and it's terrible. It will only tell you if there's a card in the area you're currently in, and only if it's physically in that location. Like, if you're in the 3D world and there's a card in a 2D section in that area, it won't be detected. Assuming it does detect a card, it won't give you any hint where to look, and it comes with metacoin ads. Even worse, the moment it becomes available, the super helpful NPC from before is put out of business by it and can no longer help you. The only other stuff you can buy with metacoins seems to be prototype areas, less than helpful meta info stations, and gibberish logs. And yet, I went out of my way to collect a good chunk of them because that's how my mind is trained. I must collect the collectibles. But at the very least, making connections to shrink, collect dust, and get cards stays consistent, right? Kinda. You gain the ability to use your spark gun while microscopic, giving you a ranged attack that works on a few things, but also allowing you to shrink down even further into beings that exist in the microscopic areas. Beyond this, there are a couple of 2D areas connected to the Nexus that are sprawling, with several people to help and many cards to collect. And then there's this place, which completely threw me for a loop. So, at some point or another, you find out there are two ways to end the game. Don't fret about choosing one or the other, because once you complete an ending, it takes you right back to where you were before you triggered that ending, allowing you to go for the other one. One ending obviously comes from collecting all the cards and filling the tower with dust to activate the Anodyne. The other, however, can come much earlier, and both endings surprise the hell out of me. The story and the game structure can be summed up with some wonderful wisdom that comes from one of the game's NPCs. You can be anything you want. You don't have to fit a mold because you were made for a purpose that someone else declared. You, as Nova, can buck your mission. You, as a gamer, can block out your impulse to collect all the things to complete your mission. The game doesn't have to follow the rules of structure and pacing that we expect when we play most games. It's a unique individual that determines what it wants to be, and it's beautiful. Anodyne 2 is a really strange game. It doesn't feel a lot like its predecessor. It has bizarre pacing, and it kind of defies definition. There's also not a lot of replay value, but it has a wonderful story that is paired beautifully with both the game and the metagame mechanics that are present. The music is incredible, and while the graphics are definitely not for everyone, I really enjoy looking at them. If you liked the story, atmosphere, and art style of the first game, this one will likely blow you away. If what I've shown you sounds appealing at all, you should give it a try. I haven't been able to shake this game from my thoughts for days, and I don't think I'll find anything like it again for a very long time. A big thank you to Gabriel Skaggs, Michael Slater, Sort My Games, and all our patrons over on Patreon. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.